Good evening and welcome to the TalkSports program, another one in the series. Well, this week, our special guest is the president of the Grenada Netball Association. Well, netball is in the spotlight this week, we should say. And it's the first time we actually talk in netball at the program. We have spoken track and field, there's cricket, football, name it. Basketball. Well, basketball got quite a bit. But this time, we are talking netball, and it will be the first in the series, but we'll start off with the Grenada Netball Association and by virtue of its president, Mrs. Glynis Roberts. So I say, good evening to you, Mrs. Roberts. Good evening, and welcome to TalkSport.
Good evening, Michael, and thank you for having me. And congratulations on having a virtual show for sport.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Well, within the hour, as we talk netball, first of all, as per previous programs, we always ask our guests to give us, because we basically in COVID times, as we say, So how have you been coping with the pandemic?
COVID has brought me into a different perspective on life, because what it has done is affected everyone, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you are oversized, medium size, small size. And it has actually stopped us from our busy running and jolted us back into reality that there is someone supreme that's in charge, and the need for us to look over our shoulders to see exactly what's happening in our community or in our neighborhood or your neighbors. So for me, as you would notice, my hair grew because in finding pictures, my grandson says to me, "Grandma, I want to see your hair long again." So I'm trying to see how long it can get so that the grandsons will be happy. It taught me to be patient. And during COVID, Bascom, there were so many people that was caught unawares, like the elderly. So that side, that missionary side, had to come to the fore to help those who are in need. I mean, I went as far as St. David's looking for people, but it's all things that I'm happy doing. In the netball world, it froze us, and that we'll talk about later. But personally, it affected us in so many different ways that it brought out an ability I had that I didn't know I have.
All right. Well, glad to know that. And by way of extension, as we said, it also affected sports in a big way, especially netball, with you, the president of the Netball Association.
Yes, it did. And for us, leading into 2020, we were fortunate to have our first council meeting. And from that council meeting in January, our mandate was to ensure that our constitution was finalized. We actually got to the last meeting where we agreed on the draft. And the next stage was to meet with the attorney so that we can finalize. And there the lockdown came. However, our competition was supposed to start the end of March. The 18th was supposed to be the deadline for registration of clubs and teams, and that didn't happen. And here we are.
Mm-hmm. So what in the, well, I should say how they are trying to get sports back on the calendar? Is it possible that netball could be one of the sports that is in line to start competition as soon as possible?
I would say we can be in line. However, with the 6 feet distancing and having netball so close, it's such a closely played game. I'm not sure how it will pan out. With schools reopening, I do not know what the construct of the classrooms would be. So I don't know if it would be 3 feet distancing or 6 feet distancing. But again, we cannot move forward unless we follow, as I would say, the protocols of the COVID-19 team. I mean, Grenada thankfully does not have any cases,
Mhm.
but you know, we hope and pray that we do not have. In the meantime, we need to, I mean, what we were doing during the period is meeting with our international body. We first had a webinar where we met with the International Netball Federation. They actually call it a roadshow. We had roadshow for all parts of the world. So the AFNA region had our roadshow. And one of the first things that we had to decide on was the qualifier, because you remember the under 21s qualifier was supposed to be in Trinidad July. So that was cancelled. Then now we had to move to AFNA. We had our AFNA meeting as well. And from there, we decided, listen, the best thing for us is to start to do training online. Then we had CNA meetings, CNA in turn as well, because we were supposed to have the senior tournament in Antigua this year. However, ECCB agreed that we do a legacy program where we do governance, umpiring, coaching online so that all of us in the region will benefit from that funding, meaning the OECS countries as well as a couple of the others who are close to us in the region, that's CNA members. So we are doing virtual stuff now. And hopefully, because we have to bear in mind that although we have regional and international bodies, our countries dictates our progress as it comes to removing ourselves from the lockdown, or let's say, you know, the protocols.
So it means that you, even though there are the regional and international federations, you still have to be governed by the local protocols, as you say it, in
Of
terms of
course.
COVID. Yeah. So
Yeah,
go ahead, please. Mhm.
and I think that is something we have to be cognizant of, because you know, we have to remember that we have rules. It's not that everything is lifted. So we have to be very cautious the way we move forward in terms of the way we administer netball. But I think what going forward, what we need to do is to have what we call a virtual meeting with our teams, or probably we may be able to meet in an area where we can get the 6 feet distance so that we can sit and discuss our way forward. It is not something that I can take on my own to do.
Okay, so while you're still on sort of wait and see situation, what are some of the plans in regards to once things are back to some level of normalcy in terms of netball's development going forward?
One of the things that we are encouraged to do is to do our strategic planning in terms of how we will roll out. But as I said before, COVID coming on board lends us opportunities to stop and to regroup. And in preparing for this program, I was doing some research and background into netball in Grenada, and have noticed that in the 80s, let's say 60s, 70s, 80s, a lot of Grenada's netball was played in the community at the village level, at the school level. Um, I heard from people like Pauline St. John, Vida Bruno Victor, Miss Eleanor Pilgrim, you know, they have given yeoman service to netball. Joan St. Bernard, they were all presidents, you know, and what I'm seeing and hearing is that the community and the schools is where netball really is. So I'm thinking now it is something as we plan strategically for the next phase. It's something we could look at. It's not that we didn't know of it before, but I think we need to put more emphasis on it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because in the last program with the Ministry of Sports, there was one question comment that was raised regarding netball in the primary schools,
Yes,
specifically in the primary schools.
primary schools. Yes.
What is the Netball Association's view on playing the netball or developing the netball at the primary school level?
Now, as I said, doing the research, it appeared to me that one of our prime ministers before, which is Uncle Gary, Eric Matthew Gary, he had a lot of focus on sport and netball in particular. So there were people like, and I would love to refer to my notes.
Please do.
Yes, because I don't want to say wrong things. But and we're starting from people like Mrs. Dow, who worked in the ministry of and at the time education and sports was linked together. So they were one ministry. So you had people like Gordon Ward, Tyrone Harbin, Mr. Papitet. I can't remember his proper name, but that's the name.
Septimus.
Septimus Redhead Papitet and Fimber Fletcher. They were part of the ministry. And then people like, may of soul rest in peace, Joan Pivot. She was also a vice president of netball, and she was in the ministry teaching as well as Bernadette Boney, Yvonne Anthony. Then we had people like Pauline St. John, Joan St. Bernard, and they all worked in the ministry. And I also understand that, like for primary school, Woburn RC School was one of the top in netball because they were coached by a nun. I heard. So they is what you say. They beat everybody, including Vida Bruno's school, which is Woburn Methodist. They would go to the park and play and win. Now, people like Judy Belma and Helen Raffit, they all played netball. And then they uncle had a South community netball. Excuse me. And also, Miss Pilgrim was telling me Vendom also had a league. So the community primary school thing is something we need to focus on. However, in this moving from governments to government and changing ministers, I believe most times the passion for one thing changes. Now, in the present construct, the association runs netball at the club level. At the secondary school level, the ministry runs that tournament. The primary school is left out. Now, for an association, for example, during this COVID time, we sought to do a survey as to in which countries governments give subvention to sporting associations. And it turned out that in our AFNA region, the only country in the region that gives a subvention to netball is St. Lucia. Um, Other persons would, the government will help. If you have to travel, they'll help you with ticket. But to give you that subvention to consistently run your tournament, it's not there. So it's a work in progress. I think we need to engage more, and not only engage community, but engage the politicians, the policymakers, because we believe, because also too with CNA, we have Ambassador Lauren Barnes from Dominica. She was saying to us that we need to look at strategically how we can get funding through the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, in terms of what they have for small island development states, so that we can look at how it can impact the lives of young girls, those who are vulnerable. However, having said all that and wanting to achieve so much, we also have to remember that in the 80s and in the 60s and in the 70s, we had nothing but sports and the playing field to go to after you would have done your chores. Now we have a different society where we have the competition with the tablets, the competition with the acrylic nails, and people not wanting to sweat excessively. But again, you have to respect people's right, as we say. However, I believe going back to the primary school, and what we also need to do, Bascom, is to work hard on getting coaches up to speed, so that we can really deliver and deliver fairly across the board, that you can go to all parishes and exert the same energy as you would do. For example, Karakou plays netball all the time, but for some reason they were never attached to us as an association. So again, all those were plans we had to do for this year, but
Yeah.
COVID again.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you mentioned something regarding coaches developing themselves and getting to know about the rules and keeping on top of the game, because it's all well and good in terms of coaching a local team, winning tournaments, but that is as much as you can do. You have
True.
to, as a coach, most times you have to put yourself on the cutting edge where it's not just a local team, but the national team and even coaching in the region. Just to
True.
get back to the to Papi Test, just to correct, I think we are getting mixed up with Septimus Lacrette, but I think is Theophilus Augustus Papi Test Redhead.
Theophilus.
Yeah, yeah, Theophilus
Theophilus
Augustus Papitet Redhead. That's the correct name.
Augustus.
He's
All
considered
right.
one of our national heroes.
Yes,
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 yeah,
I know that. Yes.
right.
Yes.
Former cricketer, footballer, calypsonian, what have you.
Yes.
But is known commonly as Theo Redhead, but his actual names rather Theophilus. As I said, Theophilus Augustus, also known as Papitet Redhead. By the way, from River Road, eh?
Yes, I know. Sorry, I
Okay.
know.
Yeah, but you were making an important point there regarding the whole issue of not and not just the coaches but also the players, because as you said, there's so much now that whereas before you have to wait for a classroom, etc., so many things online that you can go and acclimatize yourself and get yourself acquainted and in line with all the rules and regulations regarding netball, because I realize that almost every year there are changes to the rules of netball.
Yes, because you see, netball struggles internationally, as you know. Like football, basketball is a totally different game. They have a lot of sponsors, but for some reason, although netball is an exciting, lovely game, we have not been able to attract. I mean, a big sponsor for netball other than Vitality, who would have sponsored World Cup in Liverpool, or when we went to Australia, another company would have done it, Gilbert Balls, and it's all related to netball. How can we in the region, for example, with products that are healthy, that are female? I mean, because women, I mean, we spend a lot of money, whether it's on gas, buying cars, but for some reason we do not attract that big sponsorship.
Well,
So go ahead.
no. It was one of the areas we had to discuss, but I'm glad you mentioned it. Go ahead. The whole issue of sponsorship. Continue on that. Yeah.
Of sponsorship for what we do. Again, people say, sponsors follow winners. Once you're doing well, everybody is attracted to you. And that's true too. But however, I believe that there are a lot of ways that we can get sponsors to understand that what we are doing is not just for winning, but for developing lives from an early age to adulthood. One of the things, I had spoken to a big sponsor, and I want to big up that sponsor too, because the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, through the OECS Sports Desk, has been sponsoring netball for over 28 years. You know that from the people like Red Sperera. We want to big him up for that vision. And believe it or not, in the whole Americas, that's the only tournament that is sponsored and sponsored consistently every year. So we need to get the other central banks. We need to get our ministers of sports in when they meet in their meetings, or the foreign affairs ministries, to understand that for women, we can move this sport forward because some of them need to further their education. However, they gravitate to basketball because those are the scholarships that are available. How can we find a way to crack that, nut to be able to offer our girls who play national netball an opportunity to further their studies? I mean, sometimes it's sad because what you can say they really play for is an injury because they end up being injured and then they are stashed away in a cupboard. It is so sad sometimes to see our national players who would have represented or not even, and I can put on another hat, a politician. When you look at politicians who have served this nation, served, and then you see the conditions they are under, they could barely fix their cars. And then people look down on them as if they have not served. We need to do better to, we're not saying put them in palaces, but to ensure that people who would have flown the flag, because I tell you, these girls I admire so much. They play their hearts out basketball, not for a dollar. They play, they get a trip, yes, they may get a new shoes. But at the end of the day, I wish the day will come when we can say to our national athletes, listen, I can give you $10,000, I can give you $5,000. Mind you, the dynamics of netball now and the era of the greats that we spoke about before, like Joan Pivot, Pauline St. John, Eleanor Pilgrim, Evan Anthony, and all the likes, Michelle Hercules, Jennifer Woodruff, and all those, Barbara Hobson and Janice Celestine, Janice Child, and I can go on and on. They could tell you the stories that when they played, their parents were proud to buy whatever they had to wear to go or to contribute towards their ticket.
Mhm.
Now it's a different story. However, we have to still admire the past, admire the present, and see how we can work better to have the future where our girls can see netball as something I want to do because I can make a career out of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, interesting enough because the issue of scholarships, as you raised, and we would have, um, noticed that in some of the comments from some of the former national players themselves, that who would have even living, whether it's in St. Patrick or St. John's, and having to venture to the city most times to prepare for national duties,
Training, yeah.
yeah, and then there was this sort of thing whether or not they should really continue, because at the end of the day,
Yes,
yes, they may win a tournament, as you say,
yes,
but and represent the country,
yes.
but
What's
while
in
at the
it for
same
me?
yeah,
Yeah,
while at the same time they will probably seeing the footballers and the athletes, getting some sort of
yes,
incentive, getting some
yes,
sort of reward. So,
yes,
but
yes.
at the same time, how do you think the Netball Association can continue to attract young girls to the sport of netball, bearing in mind now that netball, once seen as just a girls' sport, is now becoming, multigender, in the sense of boys and girls, men and women actually playing the sport of netball?
Um, the thing about it is men are now playing netball. We had a regional tournament in Grenada last year, which the storm averted. I mean, the storm cancelled regrettably because men play so much competitive netball that, but even though they do compete well, I must say, whenever our national team plays the men as we prepare to travel, the ladies always beat the men. But the men have a unique way of elevating. They jump a lot because the physique is different. But I believe it is something that we should continue to work with. I mean, actually, about two seasons ago, we introduced a men component for a national tournament. So it was only two teams, and they played the best of five, and that grew a lot of interest more than the ladies' game. So it is something I think we need to work on, um, and work on all levels. We would not always get it right, but we
Mhm.
can try.
Okay. Well, I should say I'm glad to hear that, and I'm hoping that more we can see more of the young ladies, coming into the fore of seeing that netball, because we know that netball a few years ago had its own issues regarding why they are not, coming out to support and to play. But I'm hoping that the Netball Association can initiate something that can bring back the ladies to the court.
Bascom, it's one of the other things too. I think we need is to do an indoor facility as we move forward, and in that way, because the surfaces that we play on is very harsh on the girls' limbs, and so we need to probably advocate more for an indoor facility. Mind you, um, 2 years ago, I was appointed to a cabinet subcommittee to look into an indoor facility, which that report had gone back to the minister. Again, COVID came. However, I'm hoping that going forward, it is something that we can see so that locally we'll be able to bring our young girls to play on the proper surfaces, because I think the interest is there in netball. In actual fact, this year I spoke to Connie Belfon, and as head coach in the ministry, it was something we were working on in the primary schools to make sure that we get our girls to actually, play. And the interest is there. Spring school, I know, for example, they were preparing for a tournament this summer. Not summer, help me. The the term just before summer, you know, and that didn't happen. But I think the interest is there. I'm trying to see how I can get past netballers to be more involved in the sport, because, as I said to you, based on the history, most of the players before held executive position. But now it seems that we have a hands-off thing with it. Now, the other argument would be, once there are a lot of women, there's always confusion. But I would always say that what we have to do is stay focused. Those of us who want to help the sport, stay focused on what everyone will not agree with what you say, neither you will agree with what everybody says. But together, hand in hand, we can do quite a bit. So we need to help each other along the way. Bottom
Okay.
line. But I want to encourage young girls out there, because I saw one the other day, nice, tall. After COVID, I said, do you like netball? Have you ever played? No, 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 no. She says, I said, no, you have the height. She says, no, no, no. But I guess with exhibition, when I say that, exhibition games and encouraging families, and as we say, going back to roots, going back to the school. But one of the things too I want to say to Bascom, and I'm speaking because I guess this program is going very far. There are a lot of persons out there who can help us. I think we actually need to get some coaches to come and to help us go around the country to, when I say Karakou, Piti Martinique, island wide, so that we can scout and start to rebuild. And I think we can continue to do well, because despite all of that, you know how much we have done, how well we have done within recent years with netball.
Okay, and you have a starting point in terms of the Margaret Dow Peter David netball tournament in River Road,
Right,
with
right.
Bob Simpson and others. And I know you also, well, I think you play sometimes, you know.
I used to, man,
But
I'd get a game or two once, but I also
right.
want to say to persons, I was never a national player. I was never a national player. However, as a young girl, I played netball in St. Paul's with a club called Aces. Aces was sponsored by the Bullen Brothers, Grenada Motor and General Insurance. Again, the captain was Joan St. Bernard, and we had people like Amy Granger, Rosalind Street, Gloria Jones. And a lot of people in the community, that was a community team. And although Joan Pivot was from St. Paul's, she played with White Labels, if I remember rightly. And those were the days when we had great sponsors. So I want to appeal to the insurance companies. It is a lovely sport that we can support to help our young ladies. And I also played in Uncle Gary's South tournament. We had a team called Clancy Upsetters. Vida Bruno and I was on that same team. And it was a little checkered dress with a Polly and Clancy. I mean, if people know the story about Clancy Island, where we have the Port Louis Marina, now we had a place they call Clancy Island. He was the sponsor.
Okay. So how we can ensure that the initiative of Queens Park Rangers, the Bob Simpson, and others can multiply in other parts of the country, whether it's St. Patrick, whether it's in St. Andrew, St. David's, other parts. How can the Netball Association ensure that that initiative in River Road with Bob's and others can go around the country as well?
Um, well, I want to applaud Babs and Queens Park Rangers because and they are a model that we can look to. In St. Andrews, they usually have one as well. I don't think it is as organized that every year it happens. Again, we have this, and it's so sad, we have this tongue country divide when it comes to some things. And as an association, we can be guilty too of not doing enough outreach. But that's one of the things we started last year as well, because we went to St. David's, we went to Las Jess and did um, scouting, Kathy and Williams Gabriel, together with Scooby, which is Raoul Pear. We went, Frankie, we went up there and other members of the Netball Association and we had about 30 young women who were interested in the netball, together with Miss Gibbs from the St. David's Catholic Secondary School. No, we also used to have a tournament in St. Patrick's. Again, raw talent up there. Again, leadership. So I want to make an appeal, Bascom, because as an association, we cannot do it alone. We need others to come along with us. It is nothing, we know superheroes. It's only together we can. And probably what we can do is ask Babs to probably reach out to persons she know within the netball fraternity and encourage them to so do. We can see in Northwest, as we say, when Vendom used to have, who in Vendom can we get? Because I remember Yolan Stevens, Krista Stevens, but they all migrated. And I think migration has affected netball in some way in some areas. That's one of the challenges that netball would have had.
Okay.
But we have persons who would have migrated and returned, like Pauline St. John. She migrated to England. And I remember that's when I reconnected with my cousin in 1988 when she brought a team here to Grenada called Alpha, because her Alpha team in England, she brought them to Grenada to see West Indian netball and play here. So those are one of the things. I remember too, when we went to Newcastle in 2016, we made friends with one called Jan Richards, and Jan used to be with a team with Timmy, because we had one player which played professionally, which is Letitia Cato, and she played in Wales. So when we went to Wales to play last year, one of the plans we were having was that a club from Wales would have traveled over to this part of the world, maybe not 2020, but 2021, so that we can play a series and expose, and not just seniors, but let's say the youngsters, the teenagers as well. So it's things that, as we say, are in planning, but hopefully at the community level, we can see. I think it's a wonderful thing that is happening in River Road. And once you have a strong community, that is all you need to go forward. We did some in Woburn. We did a tournament in Woburn one year too. two seasons. But you see, it's a lot. And as I say, Bascom, in this vineyard, the laborers are few.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go over to let me see. First question. Not for you, not for you. That is
Not for
for
me?
no, not for you. That's for our viewers. What are the playing positions in netball? I want to see some of the comments coming in. That is the question that's up. Unfortunately, I know some people they enjoy watching netball, but unfortunately, they don't know, some of
Playing position.
yeah, the playing positions in netball. While we wait on that, yes, the whole developmental programs for what should have been 2020 now. Let's say it's now 2021 we're looking at, because
Yeah.
we can say that netball for 2020 is basically off in terms of a structured program. What are some of the developmental programs by the Grenada Netball Association we can look forward to in 2021?
We're not identifying without first collaborating. I would say coming out of COVID, my suggestion to the council would be for us to go back to roots, even if it means we need to suspend tournament. And it's not that that wasn't the plan. It was a plan. We had a committee set up with Tira from St. Joseph's Convent, together with I think it was Delchute Griffith and a couple others, that we would look at going back to that village community outreach. So I think it is something that we can pick up in 2021 and beyond.
Okay, then. Let me see. Some of the
I see
answers are
somebody
coming.
answer.
Well, I'm just letting it flow, but I see
Okay.
some answers coming in, and Michael Lambert. Well, in fact, Michael Lambert is one who is from the northeast. I
Okay.
think the Vandam area, and in fact, he was one of the persons who were querying, or well, I shouldn't say querying, but making the comments regarding netball at that level, the primary school level. I think he has an interest as well. In fact, he lives in New York, and he has an interest in supporting netball at the
Primary school level.
right, at the primary school grassroots level.
So
He's one.
I want to, so I'm so happy because I have my pen writing so that we can say Michael Lambert is a sponsor of the primary school netball.
Well, Michael will get in touch with you, because I know he
Very
has
good.
he has spoken to me about that many times, and very much
Yes.
interested in developing netball at
Yes.
that level. So some of the answers are coming in. Let me see: goal attack, goal shoot, wing attack, center, wing defense, goalkeeper. Yes, another one: center, goal shoot, goal attack, wing defense. I think you missed in one. Oh,
Yes, true, Ron.
yeah, he did put in
Goal
goal
shoot.
shoot.
Ron
Yes.
is a netballer, you know.
Well, yes. Well,
Ron is a netballer, so
yes.
you should not get answers from netballers.
Yeah. So Michael is saying that was my plan, to open up a competition up there. He still has that plans ongoing. So I'll
Good.
put you in touch with Michael
Great.
Lambert. Michael Lambert, I'll put you in touch. Very much so. So what are the playing positions in netball? And our answer will be, let me see if I can get our answers. Our answers are there. Yes, our answers are there. The answers for this one, correct. Goal shoot, goal attack, wing attack, center, wing defense, goal defense, and goalkeeper. Well, normally you'll see the initials at the back, well, front and back of the of what they call the bibs, right?
Right, and now we even have names on the bibs to ensure that when it is carried live, that you can refer to your players.
Okay. Well, it's good to know. Good to know now. So that
Yes.
so that's our first question of the evening in terms of netball. We'll have two other questions coming up. We have some time to ask two other questions. But just to let our viewers know that coming up on Saturday in our next edition of Saturday Sports Special, we have the former sports minister, Patrick Simmons, a former national athlete himself, national basketballer. He's a former coach and also a former school principal. He will be on our program.
And a former minister.
Swear, sports minister. Yes, he will be on our program. Mrs. Roberts, question to you now. Pointed question. Are you seeking re-election for next term as president of the Grenada Netball Association?
Oh, yes, I am.
Ah, that was a pointed answer as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So share with us your vision as one who is seeking a re-election to the post of president for the Netball Association.
The vision, Michael, as it was once I started in 2015, when you informed me that I was president on netball. It's as I said, it's a sport that I grew up with. It has taught me a lot to deal with different people at different levels, understanding, humanity and why we're here. But I believe in what we have started. We have a little bit more to accomplish. I do not want to sound as one of those who do not want to demit office, but I think there are a lot of undone stuff. For example, the Constitution. I would love that to be completed. I would love to see, as we say, the resuscitation of the primary school. I would love to see that at least we have a few coaches who are certified even at level 1. And I want to refer back to in 2015-16 actually, when we started. The minister at the time was Honorable Emlyn Pay, and we started with 9 coaches. We actually had a coach came in from Jamaica and started with 9 coaches in the ministry for level 1 of the coaching. And they have not yet completed that. And that journey, I pray and I hope will be completed. So that's all part of the vision and ensuring that we have more umpires. In Grenada, we have 4 umpires at the advanced level, which is Janice Charles, who was a former president, Janelle Jacobs, Kathy Ann Williams Gabriel, and Nadine Lett. And after that, we have nobody at intermediate, and we need to get our umpires up and out, those who can umpire at the regional level or the international level. And even as a region, we're noticing that our umpires, the average age is about 40. So those are the things I would envision, and as well, as you said, to see more community netball playing. And when we were talking about community, I did not mention St. John's. What's the name? Pecos. Pecos had a nice thing going there, but Pecos, I would say, got annoyed with me in my presidency early because he felt I was not doing the thing we're talking about now, which is grassroots. So in hindsight, Pecos was on the right track. It's not that we were on a wrong track, but I think, sometimes we have to, be able to do things in harmony. And, that is what I would like to see happen. And I will not stay forever. And I, as I say to the council before, I will be an active IPP, no matter what. So okay. Even if I seek re-election in January and I lose, I will not turn up to meetings. I will be there giving my opinion and helping in all way possible. I also want to say to Bascom, one of the things we started to do as an association is to do an award ceremony for our netballers past and present. And thankfully, we started in 2017. We did one last year, 2019, and we're looking forward to do one in 2021 because, as I said to you, there's so many people who have served the sport and we are not aware of, and the likes of, we want to say, I'm sure a lot of people didn't know Franca Bernardine was also a president. Margaret Payne was a vice president. Michelle Hercules. We have so many people who would have passed. Patsy James Dragon, so much people who would have passed. I don't know if I mentioned Barbara Hobson before. Quite a lot of people. Janice Celestine, Frida Bruno, I think, was also a president. So much people would have passed, but we were able to honor some and want to continue to do one. And one of the things I would like to also have done is to put a mural in the botanical gardens, because I don't think a lot of people know that netball actually in the region started in the botanical gardens in 50 years ago, 1997. So it tells you it's about 70 years now we playing netball in Grenada at that level. So a lot of things we need to do. And I also want to talk about the intersectors tournament. Miss Pilgrim, in all her wisdom, she need any information, go to Miss Pilgrim. Um, in 1980 was the first inter-ministry netball tournament. She said it was all on that Mascoma to come back to my notes. She said there were 5 teams, 1980, 5 teams, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Works, and the PM's ministry. And in 1980, for children who listen in history, there were only 5 ministries in Grenada. And then in 1992, they decided to do intersector, adding ministry and other, places from the private sector. And she said, our current prime minister was one of those who came to the tournament when they had Boston shootout and did shoot, and I think he must score 4 goals. That's as much information that Ms. Pilgrim have. So what I want to also encourage is that politicians not see netball as just something by the wayside, but see it as something that is critical and integral into people's development. And I want to say people because we have men playing and women.
Okay then. Well, glad you mentioned that aspect of the former national players, because Claire was deputy was saying schools and ministry competitions can be helpful in the development of netball in Grenada. Highlight the national players, the 60s and 70s, by naming tournaments after them. Remember, robust netball competition be played at Marisho Pasture also.
Yes,
so he's making that point that netball competitions can be played there. We seem to be running back the eye with some time, so I want to put in some of my other questions there. Besides the traditional or standard netball, name 3 other formats of the sport. Very interested. Besides the traditional or standard netball, which is the seven players, I think, is a traditional. The question is, name 3 other formats of the sport of netball. That is our question, and I want to see what some of those folks are.
Interesting.
Yeah. Only Wagiti offer decent compensation and the shows helped. Well, interesting enough. They're saying that Torah Deputy is saying the world governing body for netball can make the game more exciting by some rule changes. For example, allowing anyone on a team to shoot and score, do away with a rule that only 2 players can shoot and score, allow shooting from anywhere, and even like netball, have a zone, a score gives a team 2 or 3 points. Some very interesting comments, but the second question, besides the traditional or standard netball, name 3 other formats of the sport. I will wait for some of the responses. It's not as easy and not as quick as the first one, so I realize they're a bit sticking. Okay, but just to go back on some of the points you made in regards to going forward, you spoke about the Constitution in terms of vision for netball, re-election bid, the Constitution, netball in the primary schools, the certification of coaches, or certification of more coaches, we should say, and it's not just calling yourself a coach or being a coach, but I think these days we need coaches to be able to be not just a coach of a local team or a national team, but they should be able to coach even in the region, whether it's in St. Lucia or St. Vincent, they must be marketable as coaches. So not just saying, okay, yes, I'm coaching the winning team in St. Patrick or the winning team here or there, but being certified and being able to be attracted to other islands to coach, more qualified umpires as part of the program, more competitions, and of course, as you rightly said a while ago, the intersector netball tournament is still on the burner, and hoping to get more involvement, more private sector involvement in that. Well, it seems as if we are stick on that, and it seems as if everyone just knows about the traditional netball. So we may just have to go with the answers because
that one hard.
Yeah. So apart from the traditional or standard netball, there is the fast five, there's actually beach netball, and there is disability netball. So here you are.
There's also walking.
Well, yeah. So at least 3 other formats. So fast five is one that I know. There was some attempt to get fast five netball.
To get fast five going, yes.
In Grenada and the Caribbean.
Yeah, the Ministry of Sport, in actual fact, a couple seasons ago, is it two seasons ago, they were trying to get that to start off the secondary school netball, and it rained out. So it's something that we have to keep trying, because it is as one of your guests, not your guest, one of the persons looking at the program said, one of the hindrances is too much whistle and all of that. And with Fast Five, it takes away 2 persons. So it's 5 people manning the court, and then you can do substitutions without, saying so, but you have to have a lot of clothes, because the person going on has to just run in position. You can't be changing bits, But it's one that we too in the region realize that we need to work on. One of the things we want to do within our region as well, having discussions from the CN11, is to see how we can have our own league, because now we have leagues in Australia and in New Zealand, and we have Caribbean people who are playing there. Hopefully the interest with younger ones coming and having interest in the sport, they want to work hard to be able to be seen by a coach, to be able to go to one of these leagues. But if we have our own, we'll be able to, have our young people close by, because what COVID has also brought forward, Bascom, is that inability to move as we want, with flying as before. So we would have to do things within our own community, to see how we can revive the netball once we've gotten the clearance from the ministry.
Okay then. Well, and let me say good evening to Debbie Britton. Well, Debbie was on par. She just happened to be just a bit slower than putting up, but she was correct in terms of the answer. Debbie actually had it. But I must say good evening to Debbie, because Debbie is one who, well, even though I came from a family that played netball like my mom and others, but Debbie was one who got me real interested in netball, not just as a player, because I recall Debbie playing netball, but also as a coach when she coached at the Happy Hill Secondary School. As you know, there was once upon a time Happy Hill, even though they would not win at times, but they were very competitive, always in the final. And
they always give you a run for your money.
Always put up something against, especially when the Anglican High School was dominant. You can count that it is the Happy Hill Secondary School. Debbie Britton and the girls will be there. So I want to say good evening to Debbie, and I hope to see Debbie probably getting netball back at the school level, and even the Fast Five, because it seems to be a very big tournament down under Australia and New Zealand. In fact, I see even a number of netballers from Jamaica. Yeah, they
Jamaica plays.
Well, yeah, and they
Malawi. It's like the top 6 countries that's always in the Fast Five. But it calls for money, sponsorship. It's not just world ranking. It costs a lot, and not having big franchises behind us in this side of the world, it's a challenge. But it's something that's doable, because as I always say to people, in all islands you have a Bridens. Most islands you have this. You know, you have Central Bank in Barbados, in Jamaica, in Guyana, those who would have left the little ones.
Yeah,
So
and
together, the governors can do something to do it bigger in the Caribbean.
and
And also, the disadvantage we have in this region, Basque, is that our AFNA region is so big because it's the Americas, it's North America, Central America, the Caribbean, and South America. That's a lot of countries. We need to find a way to get a breakaway so that we can truly benefit, because it wouldn't be easy to get a tournament sponsored by AFNA with countries, with, let's say, businesses that only run through the Caribbean, you know?
yeah. Well, and it's I'm glad that Lincoln Deputy put this here in terms of if netball can get a solid foothold in the U.S., it will attract more fans and sponsorship. But the injection of more excitement is important. You know that
Good point.
they do play a lot of netball in Florida, and
Yes.
as well as here in New York. I
In New
know.
York, yes.
In fact, in Florida, I think there's now scholarships available for netballers at I think one or two community colleges. I have to double check on that, but they do play a lot of netball in Florida, and it's something that I know that, as Deputy is saying, that if it can really attract the sort of sponsorship as the other sports. But going back to the Fast Five, you know, the Fast Five is considered the T20 as how T20
Yes.
is the cricket, you know.
Cricket, yes.
So how it has revolutionized cricket, there's hoping that the Fast Five can do likewise for netball.
Yes.
But the other question is being asked rather by Ron Joseph is how that you can get the business sector involved in supporting netball so that players actually can be paid. I know there have been some discussions already in terms of that.
Yeah.
Sports policy might be one of it that might look into
True.
incentives for netballers. But in terms of the association, how is it approaching that idea of getting more sponsors on board so that not just when there is a tournament, but to
True.
assist in the development of the sport?
But you see, Bascom, sponsors come when you yourself take ownership. And that's one of the changes that we're advocating for netball's constitution. I believe that netballers need to own the sport, meaning, and it came from an idea that was told by our treasurer, Chris Phillip. Um, he says that if we get our netballers to actually pay a fee into the association every year, so that if we have 1,000 players and everybody pay $1 a month, that's $1,000 a month you get. And when we multiply, you can see how much you get for a year. And that's outside of your club paying their club fees. And we should also attract members of the association. For example, you, Bascom, can be a member, not being affiliated with any team, but you are a member of the association. And because of this membership, you can pay $50 a year or $10 a month or that kind of thing. Because I believe with all the competition that you have, and now with COVID and economies turning on their heads, for example, we have the tourism industry has been hit hard. We have a lot of people who have to accept reduction in their pay. That the COVID period is not normal. So we cannot behave as if, well, people have this sponsorship money as they had before, because it's a whole different dynamic for people's business now. So how can we, out of this adversity, keep afloat? I think we have to take ownership of it and be grateful for those who will continue to support us, because we have companies like Jonas Brown and Hubbards who will always help us out, you know, Grenada General and Insurance, Beacon Insurance, you know, and we can keep calling names, George F. Huggins, big supporters most times of what you have to do. But with their own adjustments to their budgets and what they have to do now to keep afloat and to keep their staff at bay and keep families, you know, we have to really think of what can we do now as netballers to keep playing the game, keep interest in it, and keeping ourselves healthy.
So our next question up is name a Grenadian who was among the first to
I
play
could
for
answer.
West Indies netball team. No.
I could answer.
Name a Grenadian who was among the first to play for West Indies netball team. Some incorrect answers coming in though.
Oh, ah,
Some incorrect answers coming in. But the on the point of wrapping up though, the issue has to do with the revision of the constitution of the Grenada Netball Association.
and and that's done, eh? When I say so, we actually from the council level we went through for weeks, from January to the beginning of March, and agreed on a lot of all what I just said to you too in terms of the membership and all of that with an attorney, Kina Marast. Yes, we actually met um, at a reception for independence when somebody was saying, Glynis, you and these young netballers, how they go in and da 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 da. And just out of that talk, she said, okay, I pledge I can help. And we consistently met. So it's just about done, Basky. I'm praying that we can probably do a virtual council meeting, as I said, go to Tantin and meet and finalize it so that we can at least adopt it before the end of the year.
Yeah, okay, that's important because
Yeah.
if you want also to get the involvement of public,
Yes.
I think that will be important to get them thing. Answers coming in. Let me see. Let me go
Yes,
back again.
yes. So they're looking right.
Yeah.
They're looking right.
Let me see. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so answer.
Toro.
Yeah, I think Toro had it correct.
And he's not from River Road.
Toro had it right. Oh,
Yeah.
Margaret deceased was laid to rest only last
week, yes.
last Wednesday, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, she was laid to rest. She was the first to actually
Yes.
play for the
Yes.
West Indies netball team. That would have been what, back in the 60s?
Yeah.
Okay. So it
Yes.
was back
In
in
the
the 60s.
60s.
Yeah,
Yes.
that you get to play netball, represent the thing. Oh, so here we know we need to spread the sport to different age range, and the association must not only place emphasis on national teams but to every level. Debbie Britton is making a contribution in terms of different age range, the age range, as we're talking about that. I assume in the primary school and others, right?
Agreed.
Okay, so
Just to give you clarity and for the persons who are listening, Mrs. Daw was selected on the West Indies team in 1960 and 1961. No, let me tell you, 61 is when I was born.
1961, you said is the year she was selected?
60 and 61.
60 and 61.
Yes.
Okay. And by way of information, we also had a Grenadian who actually coached West Indies team in the person of Vida Bruno Victor. She coached the
Yes.
West Indies team on
Yes.
tour of Australia, England, and
Yes.
I think around the region.
She did. Yes. Yes.
And we also have Grenadian who actually captained the West Indies team.
Now you have to tell me that one.
Well, captain, no, I shouldn't say captain. No, I shouldn't say captain. Goal shoot, sorry. A main goal shooter. Yeah, a main goal shooter. Janice was a main goal shooter.
Yes.
I shouldn't say captain. Main goal shooter. Yeah.
Yes. And Janice, in actual fact, Bascom, when I became president in 2015, we held a bingo at my friend's basement in New York. And she was really there to support the venture because what we wanted to do at the time was to bring a coach in to help.
Right.
Yes, and she said, I never win a bingo yet. So we actually had a prize for the person who never won anything, and she got it.
Okay.
And Nancy Langine was there as well. And we have quite a number of them in New York. And still Asha,
So,
they and Asha had a sister called Order, because
order.
I hear you talk about high school. You talk
Yeah.
about high school and Happy Hill, but you didn't speak. The convent had a group of girls that was, you couldn't tamper with them. So
Well,
let's,
well, it's
eh?
no, well,
Sometimes
it's
McDonald's too.
yeah,
So
and McDonald College. Well, that's all.
eh,
And the idea too is that, and I'm glad Debbie came on to the conversation. Even Patricia Noel just came on to the conversation as well. Patricia is from Grenville with the
okay,
Grenville Secondary School, you know. And you remember
yes.
St. Joseph Convent, St. Andrew also with Devon George, I think was a time that was Devon George was around there. I covered those netball and thing, the B
But
team,
you
the B
see, the
team,
thing about
you
it
know.
is, Bascom, as we say, there is so much history out there
Yeah.
that I, as a president, don't know about. That's why, we encourage persons to come forward and say, no, not everything that happens in any home. I was saying to somebody the other day, if you really analyze life and how it's constructed, in every family, Bascom, we have difficult moments. In every workplace, you have difficult moments. But the key is, how do we work around it? How do we respect each other? How do we try to understand the difficulty? Because sometimes you don't, it's not, and that's because we are not the same. We don't see, I would say this is a lovely orange flower, and you would say, no, that's a red flower. Because in your eyes, you're seeing it as red. But it doesn't mean that together we cannot hold hands to ensure that it is developed.
Okay.
So there are a lot of great things that happens in the schools again, but we have, and I think the challenge we have in the whole netball fraternity is that some coaches are under the Ministry of Education, some are under the Ministry of Sports. So sometimes we lack that synergy, and as an association, we really do not, what's the word, have the funds to be able to hire and do as we want. But I believe if we go the route of netballers owning netball and getting members to join on, then we will have our own fund so that we can march to the areas, do as we would like to on afternoons, on weekends, so that we can really saturate, the country to bring the netball back.
Okay. There some, even though we're getting ready to wrap up, but every time we're getting ready to wrap up in this program, it gets so interesting towards the end because a lot of information comes in. Michael Lambert is actually asking the court in Van Damme, who is in charge? Is it the Catholic Church or the ministry? That's something
I
we
could
can,
find out.
yeah, that's something we can always get clarity on. And Deborah Dean is saying, Glennis, if my memory serves me right, Barbara also played for the West Indies team. She was the sister of Doc Teeth Constantine. So I think her name is probably Barbara Constantine, a Grenadian icon in goalkeeping. It's something we can also verify with
Right,
Eleanor Pilgrim
yes,
and others. Yeah, we can get that
yes.
from Eleanor Pilgrim
What's her
Vida.
name?
Um,
Constantine?
Barbara Constantine. Barbara Constantine. The sister of Doc Teeth Constantine, a Grenadian icon in goalkeeping. Um, Forgive me for the emphasis, but I
Yes,
think
yes, yes. Like
folks will
football.
the folks
Yes.
will know yeah, Dog Teeth. But yes, interesting because the point is that at some stage through this program, I'm hoping that we can continue the discussion with, and mind me, let me just give you a short bit of a short story in terms of information. Some time ago, I made contact with Colin Dow about 2 years ago, I should say. And the idea was to, on my next visit to Grenada, to get to speak to Mrs. Dow, the late Margaret Dow. The arrangements were made. In fact, it was just before I actually traveled to Grenada. And the time I was in Grenada, she wasn't feeling well. And it was to
Ah,
speak to her to document her rich history in her own words. And Colin can bear me out on that. We still have correspondence regarding that. Oh, Michael, she's agreed, etc., etc., but she's not
mm-hmm.
feeling well. So it was decided that another time I'll be able to do that. So I'm saying that to say that we need to continue the conversation
Yes.
and the discussion to document and to get from some of these, whether it's the Eleanor
Gather.
Pilgrim, whether it's
Yes.
the Bruno Victor, whether it's the
Yes.
Janice Celestine and the
Debbie
Barbara.
Britton. And Debbie Britton, she played
Yes.
national netball too.
Well, yes.
Debbie
So I'm
was an
calling.
excellent defender.
She was a she
I
she
will
was a,
tell you.
she was a fierce defender. She played along with the Connie Belfont and others.
No, I'm trying to get the name. She had a partner. Wait.
Yeah.
Uh,
Del
uh,
Del Delva, Delva. I think. Yeah, she.
Belva.
Yeah,
They were a formidable group. Yeah,
yeah,
Belva, Tommy and
right.
Griffith.
And
They
Homie,
were
right.
Karen
So,
Celestine.
yeah, and even the surviving members of that Grenada team that played Trinidad in, was
In
it
1983 or something.
80,
So
82, 81, 80, so the early 80s. Remember time?
83. I wasn't here.
Okay,
I wasn't in Grenada at the time.
I'm trying to remember that year, but it was in I remember it was in Tantine, and it was one of the biggest crowd you would have found in
Yeah, here's
netball. Okay, when they played against Trinidad and lost out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talking to these people, I mean, I had conversation with Michelle Huckleys, for example, just by way
She
of
was the president too.
right, just by way of the phone call, and she was speaking about netball and her involvement in netball and badminton and these sort of things, and the rich history from netball, because at some point,
And you know what Miss Pilgrim told me today too, Bascom? That the first PRO they had for netball, that's a trivia to you. Guess who it was?
the first PRO,
2 minutes for the Grenada Netball Association. Oops.
no, it missed me.
Time up.
Yeah.
Carlos Thomas.
Oh, Carlos Busy Thomas. Okay.
Yes.
The late Carlos Thomas.
And I
Okay.
told her he passed on. She said, "What?" She wasn't aware. Yes.
Okay.
And that was in 1992.
Okay. So yeah, so it's important.
Cheryl Rose, yes.
Right, Cheryl Road or River Road. Yeah. So it's important that we start, and as Patricia said a while ago, getting people involved and I think you had that problem too, Glennis. People who actually love the sport, getting people involved in netball who love the sport. But it's important that we start documenting the rich history of the sport, and by way of that, I think it can attract the others into the sport, because sometimes we only know what is just around us in terms of the last year or two, but we have to document where we came from, it's
That's
important.
why we need the mural. We need the mural in the botanical gardens.
Right. Yeah. So it's indeed a wonderful time, and I'm hoping that I'm wishing you all the best, Glennis, and hoping that we can get more folks involved in the sport of netball. We know netball has gone through some tough times, but of recent we would have seen some glorious times where we were able to celebrate. For the first time in a long time, we had netballers who were able to travel the globe, play netball at a competitive level. In Great Britain,
we went to Newcastle, we went to Hong Kong,
right?
We went to Wales, won the inaugural tournament in St. Vincent last year, which is a ranking tournament with the OECS countries. I mean, our girls are talented, and I want to say to them that they should continue to hold their heads high, pursue your dreams. However, don't forget the sport, keep fit, keep safe, because, I also always say, Bascom, that there is a thing about following the crowd, but there's also something about standing alone. So you have to decipher what you want to do. If you want to follow the crowd or you want to stand alone. When I say stand alone, not being selfish, but being focused on what do I really want? What is the best for this moment? How can I contribute? You know, we have a mentality of always pull down. But let's think about how we can build bridges, put things behind us. I think sometimes we dwell so much on the negative that it weighs us down. So we would have struggled in the past. There is no perfect anything. There is no perfect organization. There is no perfect business. There is no perfect anything. This is how the master designed the world, that we use these challenges to go over hurdles. You know, when you look at the demography of the world, there are mountains and valleys. The valleys are there for a reason, the mountains are there for one reason. But we need to climb them, and sometimes we need to flatten and understand, like COVID has done for us now, is to flatten and say, listen, guys, which direction do you want to take? I'm here to slow you down. So we would not have had a perfect run. We had challenges, of course, but we can do a lot more. And I want to, before I depart the show, say thank you to the executive and thank you to all netballers who continue to fly the flag. Um, in whatever way, because we all have different netball. It's, the association is not the only one that runs netball. It's just that persons have to get permission to do tournaments through the association, and some people just don't. Um, but we hope that going forward, that people would respect things like that. And I guess what the constitution is changed, and the constitution has been trying to be changed since 1995. And this is why I would really like it to be concluded this year, 25 years after, that we can, you know, really and truly have something to move on with. And the road coming forward would not be easy, but I think with heads and hearts and hands together, we can do it.
All right, my final question to you, and I think I will ask the question after some comments there. Patricia Noel is saying that she needs some balls. She have young ladies every day on the Grenville court. That is Patricia. And then Debbie, well, I think Debbie would have missed that. What are the plans for developing the game and getting more people involved? I hope you didn't really miss that, but you will get an opportunity to wrap on that point that Debbie just made there. But my question to you, and then you'll be followed by Debbie's own, is that it appears that we have the Grenada Netball Association, the Ministry of Sports, and we also have the Ministry of Education. I make that point in the context of something you raised a while ago in terms of the synergy, because
Yes,
we have those who come under the Ministry of Education, under the
yes.
Ministry of Sports, and then there's still the Netball Association organizing. So how can we get the synergy in terms of sports, education, and Netball Association on the same page in terms of organizing and developing netball?
Well, well, as you say, um, the way forward is probably for us to meet with probably the Minister of Sports, the Minister of Education, with their PSs, and see how we can find that synergy. That's the only way we can move forward. Otherwise, we'll be still gaping. I'll be, as an association, we'll be wanting this to happen. But how do we do that is to go to the source and to the key players in netball,
Okay, then.
which is education and sports.
Okay. And our to Debbie's point now, Debbie is the plans for developing the game and getting more people involved. I think the important point that is being made, I think Patricia made it earlier, and now Debbie is making, getting more people involved.
But you see, one of the things too, um, Michael, is that netball is still voluntary. And we're taking that from day one. It's voluntary. How do we get people involved? Is by people's commitment. That if you say, I will come to do this, you come and do, and not run away after you have one or two disagreements. Commitment is what makes it work. Simple. Because people, we blame the association. But who is the association? The association is made up of all of us. All of us who have clubs, have teams. So for example, our school teams are not affiliated to the Netball Association, but they play netball. That's where the change has to come, that we have them as members of the association. Because, for example, when the children would have passed through, let's say, Debbie's school, that's it. Happy Hill don't come as a club. The only school that comes to GNA as a club is St. Joseph's Convent, St. George's. After secondary school, in recent times, there isn't a high school past pupils, a Boca, a McDonald College, nothing of the sort. So we need to find a way to bridge those gaps so that we get more involvement. And with and again, it's not only my idea, but we have to come together. So when we have our next session, we do more at letting people know when it happens, and then we can chat more, because always open to discussion.
Yeah. To tell you, my viewers always have very interesting things to say. So I was just reading some of the comments. But, I spent, well, without giving my age out, for now, I can put up 33 years of covering sports in Grenada. And I have seen and covered and watched turmoils, tribulations, triumphs, whatever, in various associations at the various levels. So Netball Association is not immune to these sorts of things, whether it was the Grenada Football Association, the Grenada Cricket Association, the Grenada National Basketball Association, just name it. They have always had the problems. And you rightly said so that, and I have experienced it myself in terms of being involved in, and when I say being involved, covering some of these national associations. People, indicate their interests and hype up. And then for some, just because of some differences and things like that, so, they pull out. And as you rightly say, sports basically in Grenada is voluntary. It's not so much a paid, especially at the executive level, And I find it sometimes, frightening that when we have these sort of differences, that people tend to pull and tug and not try to find ways of, solving the problems, in terms of Sports Association Grenada, bearing in mind that we lack the structure, the proper structure, because most of them do not come from clubs, proper structured clubs. They come from teams. So they do not understand and appreciate how there is a structure at the national level with a president, secretary, etc., because they came from a team, and a team where there is just a coach and players and no formal structure. Unfortunately, I have to say that. And I think it's something that is affecting the development, especially at the administrative level of sports in Grenada.
And it's a critical point you've just made, because I am part of the same legacy program sponsored by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank through CNA. And at our session last night, that is the very point that was made. And one person from Barbados, Kathy Harper Hall, she said Barbados had that struggle for years, where you don't have clubs and you don't have that consistent commitment and people following the sport and coming to see the sport. And she said what they did is that they have enshrined in their constitution that you can only be a club for one season. After that, you can only be a team for one season. After that, you have to be a club. So that in that way, you have the club structure where you have more management, more responsibility, so that we can move forward. It is, and nothing we do is cast in stone, Bascom. Nothing. And that's why the world is wronged. It's wrong that we can walk around things. If it was square, most of us would have fallen off in the ocean already. So we have to find a way to help each other and stop tearing each other. And as I said to people, the things that affected me in my 20s, never bothered me in my 30s. And I could move on every decade after. And now I'm heading to 60. A lot of things don't bother me because if I have 10 more years to live, my husband died at age 52. Unfortunate. Had I known he would die, we may have gone to Russia. However, you don't know what's happening tomorrow. So all I can do is commit my time for as long as I can to help the sport. If when the time comes for election, persons would not agree with my being president, I accept that just as happily as I would accept the victory. And if somebody else comes and have brighter and better ideas, why not? I would be a fabulous IPP to help that process because I love the sport. I want to see development. I want to see my country, my community move forward. And that's who I am. But we have to change course with the negativity that we always try to pose.
Mhm.
And as you say, it's like a plague, but I guess it's the human race. So what can we do?
Yeah, well, I want to put on record my appreciation for your effort as president of the Grenada Netball Association. And I say that without any apology. And you see, the problem we have is that we have so many critics. You know, that is one of the things that I stay sometimes on the sidelines and sometimes I get involved, but I stay a lot of times on the sideline and I read and I listen and I watch. And I realized that, a lot of people with so-called ideas, with so-called initiative, but they're not coming forward. They say a lot of things probably on social media about this and that. And when the time comes for them to come out and be part of the process, it's like the local saying is that they're staying on the side and joking things, and they're not getting, no, I'm serious about it, and they're not getting involved. And it behoves me that, and I get sometimes emotional because I see in the process what is happening, what is being destroyed in terms of sports. And I continue to make the point, and forgive me if I'm preaching, but I continue to make the point. Unless we move away from this team mentality, we will continue to get this sort of lack thereof of leadership. Because as I said, a team, just players and a coach, what it is you offering, get yourself into clubs, form clubs. I always look at the police sports club as an example, even though they're not involved in a lot. In fact, I'm speaking with the acting commissioner now in terms of getting them involved, because there's a cricket team, there's a netball team, and I'm saying even though they're not fully involved in netball now,
No,
but
in actual
football,
fact, Pascal, because continue, in actual fact, they were very instrumental when we were doing the constitution this season.
Right. Well, that's good to hear. So I'm saying, so I know, for example, so netball, cricket, football, table tennis, other basketball, police team, and that is
Tennis.
what tennis, right? And that is what we need to see in terms of this team, and believe that we are really doing something, because the coach on a team attending council meeting, no, a proper structure where you have a president, a vice president, whatever you make up of your constitution, and by virtue of that, we can get persons who can move on to the national executive, who can move on to the National Olympic Committee in terms of representation. And when they move on to these levels, they come in with some level of experience, and sadly enough, that is what we inherit sometimes at the national level, is persons who do not have that experience in terms of a club structure. They just operate with a team and believe that they can operate at the national level when it demands more. And sadly, our sports is really being affected. I have no apologies. Some of them are my friends, but when it comes to sports, I take it very serious. No, I'm serious about it, because I have seen over the years how people go into national executives, and then within a year or 2 years, it's just chaos, And I'm noticing that they spend too much time sometimes criticizing and not putting themselves in a position to be a better person or be a better executive member, And sorry for taking up your time for wrapping up,
No,
but I really
no,
want to
no.
get it off.
But and I really appreciate and thank you for the kudos, because some people think I've not done anything at all. But as I said, when we started, we started with getting and seeing the talent of our girls. And one of my main things was to see how I can get our players to be exposed, so that at least they can move beyond just being at home, but they can get, visibility outside. For some people, they thought we should have had it the other way around. And I didn't see any reason why we couldn't do any both. Thankfully, in 2015, my eyes were open to netball from a different angle. I remember myself and Desiree Stephen, who was treasurer at the time, we went to Australia to see World Championship at its best. And I thought, wow, I think I want Grenada to be in this. That was an opportunity given to us by the Grenada Olympic Committee. I want to thank them for that. President Lahi and General Secretary Vida Bruno Victor, they continue to support netball even if we are not an Olympic sport. And with that, we were able to get invited. And just by going to this tournament in Australia, that an invitation came around a coffee table. We were able to go to Newcastle, and everybody wanted to know where they came from. That's when I said to myself, yes, we can do it. The girls are good. We even went to qualify for Botswana. Again, I want to thank the girls. We went against a lot of odds. And sometimes people do not know the behind scene basket that you have to go through to get funds to go. And what I wanted always for the girls to do, just focus on playing. We will try our best to make you comfortable and happy. Then we went to Hong Kong. That again in 2018 was a journey. We've gotten a bronze medal. The girls play hard, and they play in conditions that we are not accustomed to, because when you go to those stores, you play in a condition. You're not playing in the open air as we do now all the time. So it's a lot of adjustment. But I want to say kudos to all of them. Thankfully we continue to give them the trophies, the accolades as they get them, because I believe they are working with their sweat and tears, and I would love in the future that we'll be able to help them out in different career paths, so that they can really be the best that they can be as women and leaders in our country, because the future of our country is in their hands through sports. I believe sports is an avenue that can bring a lot of economic development to our country alongside tourism. But as I said, with COVID, it gives us a new dispensation to work with, because we have a lot of challenges in terms of the social distancing, how we spend money and all of that. But it was a
Okay.
wonderful program. Thank you very much. And you showed me the way into netball, when I say so, how we can go the path. And people think you're not an advisor, but you're a big advisor. Tell them that you big advisor to netball and to me in my presidency, because you will tell me, and just as how you give me the kudos, you will also say to me, nah, this was a wrong move. And I appreciate that. And thank you very much for that.
Yeah, and I appreciate speaking to the girls when you have a little pep talk. I always enjoy
Yes, yes,
chatting with
yes,
them and
yes,
telling them that they're representing the Grenada, and
yes,
I enjoyed over the past year or two, speaking to your national players and things like that. So, and being
yes.
around them when they're actually training. There's anytime I visit Grenada and the national team is training or teams training, I go and look at them train.
And do our photo shoot.
Yeah, and do that. But it has been nice speaking to you, and I appreciate and I hope all the best for you as president and your executive. By the way, we had to discuss. When I say discuss, the structure
To
of your
name the
yeah,
executive. Okay,
yeah,
so
the
I could do
structure.
that. This is a nice way to end.
Yes, please.
The vice president is Natasha Douglas. That's the wife of our one of our coaches, Raul. And I want to say congrats. They had a baby boy, Amos. Then we have the secretary is Libet Alexander. Then we have the assistant secretary, who is Nicolette Pascal. PRO, Veron Lewis. Veron Lewis was a national player as well. Nicolette Pascal was a national player as well. And yours truly.
Lambert is actually an umpire. Is he an umpire?
He umpires, but he also is involved a lot with the men's netball.
Yeah, well, the men's netball. Yeah, I know, but
Yes,
he also
yes,
does some of the
yes.
umpire.
They all umpire, but it's getting our umpires um, from the level of just you umpiring for your club. One of the things we also did during the time is to see how we could get our officials to work on the court while we play our local matches. So we have scorers, people who volunteer for that. We have people from River like Marlene and Selma Phillip. They will man the court time, Frankie, people, we have a core of them that work all the time consistently, ensuring that the basket's okay, and that's what we want to develop, professional as we go, not only when we have foreign tournaments, but when we have our local tournaments as well.
Right. And a nice way to end to is just to let those who are watching know that there are new rules, as I said, every year.
Yes,
Rules. And if you go onto the International Netball Federation website,
true.
netball.sport.org, I think it's the netball.sport, or just type up International Netball Federation. You will see some of the new rules. There are new rules, and people have to get themselves, netballers themselves have to get themselves acclimatize and familiarize themselves with the new rules regarding netball.
And what has been happening too now with the lockdown is that a lot of the bigger countries and not bigger countries, a lot of members overseas utilize their time in doing a lot of virtual training, virtual inspiration. So you have players from the England Roses, from Australia sharing online, Bermuda. A lot of girls show what they were doing, because remember, during this time we had to cancel some tournaments, including the qualifier for under 21. Now Grenada lost out because our ranking dropped after the last July. St. Lucia took us over. I think St. Lucia and St. Vincent took us over. So based on that, St. Lucia is the one going. But with the COVID not subsiding, especially in England and the like, I think it may be cancelled totally.
And by way of explanation, a lot of the ranking in netball has to do a lot too with the number of matches you play, right?
You play, right?
Yeah, number of matches you play. So if you don't play matches, you will not be ranked, and sometimes you're dropped off the ranking totally.
Right.
In fact, as it is now, St. Lucia is ranked 20th, St. Vincent 21st, and Grenada 22nd.
Right.
In terms of the international ranking. Yeah.
Right. And then what will happen too is that you drop off a year. So it's 3 years really. I think our 16 is gone. Our 16 from Newcastle is gone off the radar.
Right. Because I'm looking at even Maldives and Vanuatu. They are actually off, and knowing teams as Maldives and Vanuatu, they were top teams in the world. When I mean top, and because they haven't played netball for quite a while, they were dropped off.
And let me also say, Bascom, in 2016 when we went to Newcastle and we met Jan actually came to Grenada that same year, summer, and she offered to do preliminary umpiring exam for our umpires. About 7 started and only 2 finished and got the preliminary. It was Raul, Scooby, and Cecile. So these are the only 2 we have at preliminary now. So we have to get a hold. But what the CNA has done is offer this legacy program where we have quite a number of names that went to CNA. However, they had to choose because it was only, I think, was 6 per country. So based on that, Grenada may have gotten about 10 or 11 or 12 of them who are doing that preliminary now. So hopefully by the end of November, end of the year, we will have more umpires certified as well as coaches at level 1.
Okay then. Well, thank you very much. And once again, I'm hoping that the folks who really want to get involved and see netball move forward, here is an opportunity for you to be
True.
involved. And remember, we are all humans, so there obviously will be differences. And if there are differences, all you have to do is to find ways of how you can iron out these differences. Okay?
Yes.
Because it's
True.
for the development of the sport and not for personal, personal appeasement or ego, as they say it, riding egos, So
Right.
if you think you can make a contribution, get in touch with the association, see how you can be involved. Do not just stay on the sideline and criticize and, make comments and what have you, but see how you can be involved. It's better if you try to get involved and you're, probably neglected or, you're discarded or whatever it is. I hope that doesn't happen. But it's not just a matter of just staying and, criticizing on the outside, but seeing how you can make a difference. And again, my final point is I want to see us moving away from the team mentality
To
and
clubs. Yes.
going into the club structure.
Club structure.
So just what it does also, well, it helps in the development of sports throughout. So that just as how Queen's Park Rangers, football, netball, and I want to see they get into a basketball and cricket and thing. We want to see that with others where you have clubs. So they're playing, and by way of doing that also, we talk a lot about sponsorship. A sponsor will be happy to know that they are sponsoring a club, whereas they can maximize their sponsorship through various tournaments. So when it's football, they know that it's Dano, for example, sponsoring their team at the football. Netball, same thing. Basketball, same thing. And so
so production in Dano will go high.
That is the idea in terms of maximizing the sponsorship, and this team mentality, we have to move away from this team mentality. We have to move towards clubs and strengthening the club structure in Grenada when it comes to sports. It helps in the development of the sport. It helps in the development of administrators. It also helps in the development of the sportsmen and women.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much,
You
President Glynis Roberts. And I'm looking forward to talking netball again some other time. We'll try to get some others.
Yes.
Anything you want to say before we leave?
I just want to say best wishes to you in COVID country. And best wishes to your daughter. I know she had a close one. And thank you for your services. And to all who's listening out there, thank you for your contribution. And as Michael says, let's put our shoulders to the wheel, stay committed, and work for the prize.
Well, I thank you very much. And, I haven't spoken publicly about that, but you were one of those who reached out to me when we had this issue with my daughter earlier this year when she was shot. I mean, I'm not afraid to say it. She was shot in the head. And while it was emotional for the family, we were able to cope. We thank you, yourself and others, for the, the compliments and reaching out to us and finding out how things going. I can say that she has recovered, although I can't say fully, because of course it's in the head. So it's but she's back at college in her final semester. Great, and we're hoping for the best. Thank you once again. And folks, invitation is to join us on Saturday, where we'll have Mr. Patrick Simmons, the former sports minister, a former athlete, basketballer, coach, principal, what have you. He will be on the program on Saturday from 1 o'clock. And hopefully next Thursday, we'll have former West Indies captain Darren Sammy. He will be speaking about the near victory in the CPL. Near victory, I say, in the CPL today. Darren Sammy will join us next Saturday. Thank you once again. Thank you, Sister Glynis Roberts. And thank you. Bye. Take care. So that's, folks, that's our program for this evening. It was a longer program because we, as president of the Grenada Netball Association, we wanted to get as much as possible. We hope to have other presidents of national associations with us Dwayne Gill has agreed to be with us sometime in the future. We hope that football will agree and others will agree. Thank you once again and hope to see you on Saturday.